Good evening, dear listener. Settle in the way you like most, maybe on your side, maybe on your back, and let your shoulders drop just a little, as if the day is finally allowed to end. There's nowhere you need to go right now, and nothing you need to solve. You can simply be here, breathing slowly, letting each exhale loosen whatever you've been carrying. If thoughts wander in, that's okay. You don't have to chase them. Tonight, you can let them pass like quiet clouds while you drift into a warm place, into a small bakery at winter dawn, where the world is soft and the simplest work brings a calm kind of happiness. Outside, the night is pale and slow, as though it's still deciding whether to become morning. Snow falls in thin, patient flakes, dusting the street with a light hush that makes everything feel kinder. The bakery sits on a corner where two narrow roads meet, its windows fogged slightly from the warmth within. A small sign hangs above the door, not bright or loud, just steady, like a promise that the lights will always come on before the sun does. Inside, the air is different from the street at once, warmer and gentler, wrapping around you the way a blanket wraps around tired feet. The scent of flour and yesterdays, wood-polished shelves, mixes with a faint sweetness that lingers in the walls. Vanilla from custard, cinnamon from morning buns, sugar that once caramelized and never fully left. A kettle sits near the back, quietly ticking as it cools, and the bakery's clock makes a soft, regular sound that doesn't demand attention. Everything feels arranged with care, not perfection, just the kind of order that comes from doing the same comforting things each day. In the very early hour before most people wake, the baker's assistant arrives first. His name is Jonas, and he moves like someone who has learned to be gentle with the morning. He stamps the snow from his boots on the mat by the door, then pauses for a breath, as if he's greeting the room itself. His cheeks are pink from the cold, and when he rubs his hands together, the sound is quiet, like dry leaves brushing. Jonas sets his scarf on a hook that has held many scarves before, and he shrugs off his coat, revealing a worn sweater with flour, dust permanently woven into its story. He doesn't mind that. He likes the way the bakery leaves its marks, He crosses to the sink and washes his hands in warm water, and the steam rises in a small cloud that disappears before it reaches the lights. The soap smells faintly of lemon, clean and bright, and it makes the coming warmth feel even more real. Then he turns on the lamps above the main table. Their light spreads in gentle pools, turning the flour on the countertop into something softly luminous, like fresh snow brought indoors. The oven is the heart of the bakery, and it waits in the back like a calm animal, quiet now, but full of stored possibility. Jonas approaches it the way you approach a fireplace, without hurry, with respect for what it can do. He checks the knobs, listens to the faint click as he brings it to life, and soon there's a barely there hum, like a deep breath being taken. Warmth begins to gather, slow and sure, pushing away the last cool shadows in the corners. From a shelf, he takes down the largest mixing bowl, metal dulled from years of use. The bowl makes a soft ring when he sets it on the table, and that sound, simple, familiar, feels like the bakery waking up. He measures flour into the bowl, and it falls in a pale stream, whispering as it lands. The fine dust rises briefly and settles onto his knuckles, into the lines of his skin, like a quiet signature. Next comes water, poured carefully, and then a bit of yeast that looks almost shy in his palm. Salt follows, and a small spoonful of something special. A pinch of vanilla sugar that the head baker allows on mornings when the air feels particularly cold. Not too much, the head baker always says, smiling without looking up. Just enough to make the room feel like it's expecting something good. Jonas stirs slowly at first, using a wooden spoon that has been sanded smooth by time. The mixture is shaggy, clinging, and uneven, and it makes soft sounds like thick rain on a window. As he works, he hears the city beyond the glass, still sleepy, but stirring. Somewhere, a tram glides along its tracks with a low, polite rumble, and a distant set of footsteps crosses a courtyard, crunching lightly in new snow. There's a faint cough from an apartment above a shop across the street, then silence again. The world is waking in small pieces, like a quilt being pulled into place. Jonas sets the spoon down and uses his hands. The dough is cool and tacky, alive in the way raw bread always is, responding to touch with slow elasticity. He folds and presses, then lifts and turns, letting the dough gather itself. The motion is steady, almost like a lullaby in movement. Repeat, repeat, soften, repeat. Flour dusts the tabletop, and when his hands slide over it, there's a gentle shush, the softest rasp. It's a sound that belongs to early mornings and work done without an audience. He covers the bowl with a cloth and lets the dough rest. The cloth is striped and faded, washed so many times that it's become as tender as an old sheet. For a moment, Jonas simply stands there, palms warm from friction, listening. The oven hums. The clock ticks. Snow brushes the window in tiny taps, as if the weather is asking permission to stay. The head baker, Marta, arrives not long after, bringing a new pocket of cold air when she opens the door. She is older than Jonas, but the kind of older that feels like more warmth rather than more distance. She greets him quietly, in the same tone you might use around someone who is still sleeping, and Jonas answers the same way. Their voices don't need to be loud. The bakery hears them anyway. Marta sets a paper bag on the counter, and the bag releases a little breath of cinnamon as she opens it. Inside are cinnamon sticks, whole and fragrant, and a small jar of ground spice that looks like soft brown velvet. Snow's being gentle today, she says, glancing out the window. That's good for bread. The world stays calm. Jonas smiles, not wide, but real. Quiet joy, he thinks, is the best kind joy that doesn't need to prove itself. While the dough rests, they prepare other things. Baskets dusted with rice flour so nothing will stick. Trays lined with parchment. A small bowl of water set aside for steam. Marta mixes a filling for morning buns, and when she stirs butter, sugar, and cinnamon together, the smell rises like warmth you can breathe. Jonas measures a little more vanilla into a bowl of fine sugar, rubbing it between his fingers so it disperses. The granules catch the light, and for a moment they look like tiny crystals of winter turned sweet. They work without rush. They have learned that bread punishes impatience, and rewards steadiness. When the dough has rested long enough, Jonas lifts the cloth. The surface has changed, smoother now, slightly domed, holding itself with a new confidence. He slips his hands under the dough and begins the first stretch and fold. The dough elongates, then lays back down like a tired cat, settling into a better position. Each fold makes it stronger, building structure you can't quite see yet, like a small internal architecture forming. Jonas enjoys this part most because it feels like encouraging something rather than forcing it. Marta prepares a bowl for the next batch because there will always be another batch. The bakery runs on gentle repetition. Outside, a street lamp flickers, as if considering turning off, but decides to stay on a little longer. The sky is still a deep winter blue, not yet ready for sunrise, and the falling snow makes everything look slightly blurred, like a painting done with softened edges. Jonas works through the next folds, then covers the dough again. He cleans the table with a bench scraper, and the sound of metal on wood is soft and satisfying, like tidying up thoughts. Marta begins shaping small rolls, pinching seams with practiced fingers. Her hands move with a calm certainty, and Jonas thinks there's something comforting about watching someone be good at a simple thing. They speak in little pieces about the weather, about a neighbor who finally fixed a squeaky gate, about a child who waved at the bakery window yesterday and pressed her nose to the glass. These are not urgent topics, and that's exactly why they belong here. As time moves, the bakery grows warmer. The oven's heat becomes a steady presence, filling the room in a way that makes the cold outside feel far away and harmless. Jonas pours himself a small cup of tea and takes a sip. The steam smells faintly of herbs, and it slides down warmly, soothing the last roughness of early waking. When the dough is ready, they divide it. Jonas cuts portions with the bench knife, and each cut makes a gentle, almost inaudible sound, the dough sighing as it separates. He rounds the pieces, turning them against the table so their surfaces tighten into smooth domes. The motion is rhythmic, a small circle repeated again and again. The dough feels alive under his palms, springy, soft, cooperative. He sets each round aside to rest, seams down, as if tucking them into place. Marta prepares the bannetons, dusting them carefully. A fine cloud rises and settles, and for a moment the air looks like it's glittering, then comes shaping. Jonas flattens around gently, then folds it in, building tension, sealing the seam with the side of his hand. Each loaf becomes a small, contained promise. He places the shaped loaves into the baskets, seam up, and covers them. Now they will prove, growing subtly, filling out their forms while the bakery continues its quiet tasks. As they wait, Marta begins making a batch of sweet dough for cinnamon knots. She adds a touch of vanilla, and when it meets the butter, the scent turns creamy and comforting, like warmed milk in a kitchen at home. The city outside grows slightly louder, but still polite. A distant door closes. A bicycle rolls by, tires whispering over thin snow. Somewhere, someone starts a car, and the engine's low murmur fades down the street. Jonas looks out the window and sees a couple walking close together, heads bowed against the cold. Their breath blooms in the air, then vanishes. He likes that the bakery is part of this morning without needing to intrude on it. It simply offers warmth and the smell of bread that will soon drift into the street like an invitation. When the loaves have proofed enough, Jonas and Marta uncover them. The dough has risen, soft and full, the surfaces gently taut. Jonas prepares the peel and the trays. Marta checks the oven's heat with a glance and a small nod that says, "Yes, it's ready." They flip the first loaf from its basket onto a floured board. It lands with a soft, muffled thump, and a tiny puff of flour lifts into the air. Now comes scoring, one of Jonas's favorite moments. He takes the lame, just a small blade held carefully, and positions it above the dough. For a second, he pauses, not out of fear, but out of respect. Then he draws the blade through the surface with a confident, gentle motion. The cut opens cleanly, like a seam meant to be there, and the loaf seems to relax into its new shape. Jonas makes another score on the next loaf, then another, each one slightly different. each one a quiet signature. Marta watches, and she smiles with her eyes. "They'll open beautifully," she says, and Jonas feels a soft pride that doesn't puff up, just settles warmly in his chest. They load the loaves into the oven. Heat washes over Jonas's face as the door opens, and the inside glows like a small sunrise trapped in brick and metal. Marta tosses a bit of water into a hot tray to create steam. There's a brief hiss, a cloud that blooms and disappears, and then the door closes again, sealing the loaves into their transformation. For a while, the bakery becomes a waiting room for fragrance. The timer is set, but they don't rely on it alone. They listen and smell, as if the bread will tell them when it's ready. As the minutes pass, the air changes. The scent of raw dough becomes the scent of baking, sweet, nutty, deepening into something that feels almost like comfort made visible. Cinnamon from the buns begins to mingle with the bread's warmth, and vanilla lingers underneath, softening everything like a gentle note held in the background. Jonas wipes down the table again, slow and thorough. He likes the feeling of returning things to order, of making space for what comes next. Marta shapes cinnamon knots, rolling and twisting dough into tidy spirals. She brushes them with butter, then sprinkles cinnamon sugar generously, and each knot looks like a small, edible piece of morning. They slide those into the oven after the first loaves have set their crusts. The bakery is now a layered perfume. Toasted grain, caramelizing sugar, butter warming into sweetness. Outside, the sky begins to lighten. It's not bright yet, but the deep blue shifts toward a softer shade, as if dawn is arriving on tiptoe. Snow still falls, though more sparsely now, and the street looks clean and new, like it has been freshly made overnight. A person in a thick coat passes the bakery window and slows, turning their heads slightly, drawn by scent even before they know why. Jonas notices and feels a quiet satisfaction. He doesn't need applause. That small turn of a stranger's head is enough. Proof that warmth can travel. The first loaves finish baking. Marta opens the oven, and the heat rushes out, carrying aroma with it like a story. Jonas reaches in with practiced care and slides the loaves onto a rack. The crusts are a deep golden brown, edges opened where the scores bloomed, and as the loaves settle, they begin to crackle softly. It's one of the most comforting sounds Jonas knows, the gentle singing of crust as it cools. Tiny pops and whispers, like a fire settling into embers. He leans in just a little, not too close, and listens. The sound is subtle, but it fills him with the same calm as rainfall. Marta taps the bottom of a loaf with her knuckles and listens for the hollow note. Satisfied, she sets it back and nods. "Good," she says simply. In her voice, the word carries years of mornings like this, years of small victories. They continue, baking batch after batch, moving through the routine like a well-learned song. Jonas doesn't feel trapped by repetition. He feels held by it. Between oven loads, he grinds a bit of cinnamon with a mortar, and the scent bursts fresh and sharp, then settles into warmth. He sprinkles a touch into a small pot of warm milk for a simple drink they share sometimes, something not on the menu, just for the people who wake before dawn. Marta pours the milk into 2 small cups, and they stand by the window for a moment, drinking slowly. The warmth spreads through Jonas's hands and chest, easing him from the inside out. Outside, the first real signs of morning appear. A shopkeeper across the street lifts a metal shutter, and it rattles softly, then quiets. A delivery truck passes at low speed, tires hushing over slush. Somewhere farther away, a bell chimes the hour, muffled by snow and distance. The bakery's front door remains locked for now, but the place feels open anyway, full of welcome. The shelves begin to fill, loaves lined up like small hills, rolls nestled together, buns glazed and shining. Jonas arranges them with care, not fussy, just attentive. He likes how each item looks different, but belongs together, like a family of warm shapes. He sweeps the floor, and the broom's whisper is soothing. Flour dust lifts in a soft wave, then settles again, reluctant to leave, as if it wants to stay part of the bakery's air. Marta prepares the small chalkboard sign for outside. She writes today's offerings in neat, familiar handwriting, then adds a small note at the bottom. Snowy morning, come in for warmth. Jonas watches her do it and thinks how much he loves that the bakery isn't trying to be clever. It's simply honest. When the door is finally unlocked, a bell above it gives a quiet ring, bright but gentle. The first customer is an older man with a wool hat pulled low, his mustache dusted with snow. He steps inside and breathes in, eyes softening. Smells like my grandmother's kitchen, he says, and there's something tender in the way he smiles. Marta greets him by name. Jonas doesn't catch every word, but he hears the tone. Familiar, warm, unhurried. The man buys a loaf and 2 rolls, then pauses, as if he doesn't want to leave the warmth too quickly. Jonas understands. It's hard to step back into cold when you've found a pocket of comfort. Soon another customer arrives, then another. A young woman with red cheeks chooses cinnamon knots, and when the bag is handed to her, she holds it close as if it's a small heater. A parent comes in with a child bundled like a little round bear. The child presses mittened hands to the glass case and points, eyes wide. Marta leans down and speaks softly to the child, and Jonas hears the child's small laugh, bright and brief. That sound seems to lift the whole room, like a candle flame flickering higher. Jonas continues working behind the counter, and in the back, always moving, always returning to the dough. Another batch is mixing now, because mornings don't stop. They simply unfold. He adds flour, water, yeast, salt, and again, that tiny pinch of vanilla sugar, just enough. He stirs, then kneads, and the dough begins its slow journey toward becoming something comforting in someone's hands. He finds joy in how nothing is rushed, yet everything happens on time. The dough rests when it needs to rest, rises when it's ready, bakes when the oven welcomes it. The process feels like a lesson in patience that Jonas doesn't have to force himself to learn. It simply enters him through repetition. Each day, he practices trust. Outside, dawn becomes morning. The sky turns pale, then brighter, and the snow slows, drifting down in lighter, smaller flakes. The street is no longer empty. People walk by with scarves and hats, some glancing toward the bakery window, drawn by the glow and the bread's invisible reach. The city's sounds grow fuller now, but still softened by winter. Trams slide along, doors open and close. Voices pass in short conversations that vanish like breath. Inside the bakery, the warmth remains steady. The oven hums. The racks hold cooling loaves that crackle less now, settling into quiet. Jonas steps to the window for a moment and watches the snow. He feels tired in the good way, the way you feel when your effort has become something real. Marta passes behind him and sets a fresh loaf on the counter near the register, ready for slicing. The crust is beautifully browned, and the score has opened like a smile. Jonas inhales, and the scent fills him with calm. Bread's smell is unlike any other. It speaks of nourishment, of home, of time spent well. He thinks about how many hands will hold these loaves today, how many tables they'll sit on, how many small moments they'll accompany breakfast in a quiet kitchen, lunch shared on a break, soup eaten slowly while snow falls outside. He doesn't know the details, and he doesn't need to. It's enough to be part of it. In a lull between customers, Marta cuts a small heel from a loaf and offers it to Jonas. The inside is steaming slightly, crumb open and tender. He takes a bite. The crust crackles, the inside is soft, and the flavor is deep and simple. For a moment, he closes his eyes. He tastes wheat warmth, a hint of sweetness that might be vanilla, or might be just the feeling of being safe. Marta eats her piece too, leaning on the counter. They don't speak right away, because some things are better left unspoken, allowed to settle. Then Marta says quietly, "This is good work." Jonas nods. He feels it in his hands, in his shoulders, in the warmth on his face from the oven each time it opens. He thinks about the world outside, busy, loud, full of demands, and how this place remains gentle. Not because nothing is hard here, but because the hardness is softened by care. Another customer enters, bell ringing softly. Jonas turns with calm readiness, hands clean, eyes attentive. He bags bread, counts change, says a few kind words. Small exchanges, simple and human, as the morning continues, the bakery keeps doing what it does best, turning flour and water into something that comforts, turning cold dawn into warmth, turning quiet labor into quiet joy. If you're listening from your own warm place, you can let this bakery stay in your mind like a softly lit window on a snowy street. You can imagine the hush of flour, the gentle crackle of cooling crust, the cinnamon and vanilla in the air, the oven's steady breath. You can let the city outside fade to a distant murmur, like a lullaby made of trams and footsteps and faraway doors. You can let the warmth gather around you, the way it gathers around Jonas and Marta as they work, and you can rest knowing that somewhere in a small corner of morning, simple things are being made with care. The snow falls lightly, the bread rises, the oven glows. Your breathing can slow now, easy and unforced. Your thoughts can soften. And as the bakery continues its gentle routine, mix, rest, fold, shape, score, bake, you can drift towards sleep with the quiet certainty that the world still holds places of warmth and that you are allowed to rest.